Hello and welcome to England Cricket on 99.94 Cricket every day. I'm Daniel Norcross and I'm joined today in a little bit of a change in the normal schedule, not by Rory Dollard, the puff pastry hangman. He's got a couple of weeks off. Instead, it's the big cheese himself, Le Grand Fromage. It's Jared Kimber. Lovely to have you along.
I'm glad I still got a stupid nickname to go along with the puff pastry hangman. I would have been disappointed if you just said, "Is Jared?"
Yeah. I mean, I've sort of put you in a bracket a little bit with Matt Pryor there, which, thinking about it, is probably not the most flattering thing. So I take it all back. We are going to talk today, because we're on the eve of a test series taking place in Pakistan, an historic one between England and Pakistan 17 years after the last one in 2005. We are going to discuss, well, all the shenanigans that have been taking place today. There's a virus in the camp. Who are England going to end up fielding as a team? And indeed, when will the test match actually start? We'll also look at the selection that was announced yesterday, the 11 that were announced to take the field. What does that tell you about Bazball, if that's the word we're continuing to use, but in the absence of any other, I might as well. And finally, how does a team like that, on pitches like those, take 20 wickets? I'm hoping that Jared is going to be able to find the answer, because I'm pretty sure Rory and I wouldn't stand a chance. England Cricket on 99.94 is your new home for England Cricket content. We will be dropping into your podcast feed and on YouTube or the 99.94 app several times every week. So please do rate, review and subscribe. Thanks for joining Cricket's conversation. Now, Jared, the news just come over. They've got 5 years left to die in. No, that's a David Bowie song. The news has just come over that there's a lot of virus in the camp. Now, people are being a bit cagey about the type of virus. It's not a food bug, apparently. Oh, no, it can't be that, because they've got a chef. The chef's come down with the bug as well, incidentally. It's some kind of non-specific virus thing that Joe Root has had and recovered from. But at the time of recording, only 5 fit English male players were available, one of whom was Joe Root. That's not enough to make a team in cricket normally. You tend to need 11.
You and I played in some club sides where we probably push that, to be fair.
I've started a game with 3 at Albury back in 2001. I was opening the batting. It was an horrendous thing. I just basically stared at the driveway waiting for the 3 cars containing the other 8 players to arrive. But that's another matter. I don't think England will be quite in that situation. What they have done, though, is, I don't know, is this sensible or is this just colonial privilege? They have got their heads together with the PCB, and an agreement has been made that if the England camp is still stricken with terrible virus when the scheduled start time occurs, they will postpone the start of the test match by a day, and this will make no change to the remaining schedule. So the 2 matches in Multan and Karachi would still start on the 9th and 17th of December, respectively, leaving a very small gap between the first and second tests. And it means that we're unlikely, therefore, to get to see the delightful prospect of Rob Key back in England colours, or Paul Collingwood, or Marcus Trescothick, or, as Joe Root quite preposterously suggested, Brendan McCullum. You seem to forget that Brendan McCullum isn't, in fact, English.
Didn't he also say that McCullum was going to bat at 3?
It would have been rather nice to see.
Didn't he have him at 3? He's not a 3. I mean, he was all over the place for it.
He's not a 3. No, you make a strong point. He's not a 3. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's possibly why he's no longer captain. Would make sense, wouldn't
it? Yeah, it's so weird. So you mentioned colonial privilege, because I don't think any cricket team is wrong to ask, right? But I do find it weird that other teams haven't asked before, as far as we know. It doesn't seem to be a very popular thing to do. And to go back, Dan, that Ireland played the West Indies during COVID times, or COVIDia times. And during that period, they had to bring out their batting coach, William Porterfield, who, to be fair, compared to Trescothick, Key, and Collingwood, was probably not as far out of the game as they had been. So it wasn't as ridiculous a situation. But they also had one of their bowlers batting in the top order. Um, uh, he had done it before, but they weren't. That wasn't the plan. They had to do that because they had no fit batters, right? I don't think Ireland would have felt comfortable asking. And I think that is quite interesting in the fact that England has done that. The other thing is, and I don't think you probably weren't covering this one because I was there for TalkSport, so you wouldn't have been allowed. But when everyone got sick in South Africa a couple of years ago, when England were there, that was a situation where England lost that test, most probably because of the illness that went through their camp. Might have even been COVID before we knew what COVID was at that point. The whole thing's just bizarre that we've got to that point. But cricket does have a great history of teams going out and playing with random people. That Henry Blofeld, yeah. So with Henry Blofeld probably being the number one most famous case of cricket getting to a ridiculous point.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a little question mark around that as well, isn't there? Because it's Henry Blofeld, and
it probably
loves
didn't
a
happen.
yarn. So whether he actually, and yeah, almost certainly didn't happen. Yeah, I mean, I think the difference here between this and the example you gave with Ireland is just the realpolitik of it, isn't it? Is that England touring Pakistan is a really big deal. As I said right at the top, hasn't been done for 17 years. And I guess they've got to make sure that they can, as far as possible, get 11 fit players, 11 people onto the park. I mean, no one recovers from a virus that lays them out sufficiently to play Test cricket within a day. You wouldn't have thought so. Whatever 11 England put out there might be around 5 relatively fit players, and there'll be about 6 that aren't relatively fit. So that's going to be a challenge if touring Pakistan isn't already a challenge. But there are some rather amusing possibilities here, none of which will happen, I'm sorry to say. You mentioned Henry Blofeld, but the BBC TMS team has got a really good candidate to bat at in Pakistan. Vic Marks, the last 3 times he batted in Pakistan, he got a half century on each occasion.
Specialist.
Alex Hartley could be the first time, especially with Jack Leach not feeling so well. They need a left-arm spinner. Finally, could we get to see a woman playing in a men's test match? She's out there for the England side, and actually her speeds are up a little bit. They're closer to Jack Leach's speed over the last season. I think she was averaging 51, 52 miles an hour, so that could be intriguing. Nice low action as well. Could be awkward on those slow, low pitches. And Andy Zaltzman, wicketkeeper batter, left-hander. Could this be his chance?
Yeah, I've seen Zaltzman play some very good shots. I'm all for Team Zaltzman in this situation, and if that's what it comes to, I think in many ways cricket is the real winner. What I what I would say is that I think the nightmare scenario for England is I've got no problem with England asking, and I think Ireland probably should have asked, looking back on it, and I've also got no problem with Pakistan saying no. Right? If I was working for those 2 boards, I would ask and I would say no. That would be how I would do it. I think England's nightmare scenario is if this is one of those Pakistani flat pitches where it's impossible to get a wicket and they spend 2.5 days bowling, that it could flow on, pardon the pun, throughout the entire series. So Pat Cummins talked about the fact that Australia looked at the Pakistan tour as not a test match, but not 3 test matches, but a 15-day test match. And knowing that they would have to be out in the field for good periods of time, they would have to rest people during games and all these sorts of things. If they are sick and, someone goes out there at 80% and ends up in the field for 2.5 days, that could have a real follow-on effect, I think, for England. So I've got no problem with them asking, and I've got no problem with Pakistan saying no. I don't know how it works, with ticket sales, because it's not as if Pakistan ticket sales are a major part of how they make their money. But at the same time, you've just got cricket back at home in Pakistan. Do you really want to annoy a bunch of people who are coming in for day 1 of a test? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. It's a less than perfect situation, but I think it'll probably be resolved with England taking to the field on the scheduled first day after having been given some pills and pitching up. It's all a sort of storm in a teacup is the way I would see it. But you never know. I might be proved completely wrong, and it could all be a total mayhem come the start of the Test match at god awful o'clock tomorrow morning. Now, we're going to take a short break. After that, we are going to look at the England team as selected. What does that tell us about Bazball?
You're listening to Cricket's Conversation on 99.94. Whatever your team, we have the show for you on podcast, YouTube, or on the 99.94 app. We have India, England, South Africa, West Indies, and now Sri Lanka covered. If you want to find us, the best way is to follow us on social media at 9994DM by downloading the 9994 app or Google 99.94 on podcast. We speak cricket.
So welcome back. First Test match between England and Pakistan due to take place imminently in Rawalpindi. And England have selected an unusual side, to say the least. Opening the batting, Ben Duckett. Ben Duckett, a man who's made his name scoring runs at Trent Bridge and at Wantage Road. Opening the batting against English county seamers. He's going to play yet another Test match. When I say yet another, not very many at all, but every single one of them has been played on the subcontinent, opening the batting. Very different set of circumstances, I grant you, in Pakistan, but quite how well he did in a T20 series against spin, I'm not quite sure how that translates necessarily into how you face the likes of Nazim Shah in a 5-day game with a red ball. Liam Livingstone, who hasn't played first-class cricket all year, he's in the side, carded to bat at 8, definitely picked as a second spinner behind Jack Leach. A very curious selection, it seems to me. Will Jacks, who's also in the squad, did play an awful lot of county cricket last year and did do an awful lot of bowling. Jared, you've crunched the numbers on Liam Livingstone. I say crunched, you've looked them up. And he's not bowled a lot of overs, has he, in the last 2 or 3 years?
No, that's the easy way of putting it. He bowled 91 overs last year. And what's that? I mean, part-timer in first-class cricket, you're probably looking at 150 to 200 overs. So that's like a zero contract hours bowler who's only available on the weekend, I suppose. The year before, he only bowled 21 overs. And, career-wise, he has 43 wickets at 36. So if England get more than 2 wickets out of him, it's a huge success story, I would say, looking at his career numbers. He is playing in Asia, but Pakistan, I think sometimes we overestimate how much the ball spins in Pakistan. Essentially, Pakistan's major skill is not allowing the bowlers to be very good at all and slamming their head into a pitch. But yeah, 43 career wickets at 36. So his average is fine. So he probably gets used when the ball spins. I had a look. He took 18 wickets at Old Trafford. So a good chunk of his career wickets come in a place where you do want to bowl spin. And my guess is most of the rest of the time when he is actually bowled, it's probably been in a situation where they have needed him. He took 6 wickets in the Caribbean in 2018. I might be the first person to ever say this, but I would say the Caribbean wickets of 2018 are probably very similar to the kinds of wickets you do get in Pakistan. So there's that.
Yeah. Look, it could be an inspired move, but I think whatever it is, and Rory and I have discovered over the course of the last few months that being sceptical about what Ben Stokes and Brendan McCullum choose to do with their selections and how they choose to play the game is a mug's game, because that scepticism is always slightly undercut by extraordinary and historic victories by this team. But both Duckett and Livingstone, those are picks straight out of McCullum Central Casting, aren't they? I mean, you would never have seen those two picked completely randomly for a Pakistan Test match under any of England's previous coaches, would you?
No, I wouldn't. I can't think of anyone who would have done it. The Bazball thing is quite interesting if you step back from it, because essentially, I think we've proven now that essentially they played Bazball with the worst batch of Dukes balls that have ever been stitched or hand stitched. And then they played against South Africa, and the balls actually did start to move around, and Bazball sort of faded away. And if Dean Elgar hadn't have stuffed up at the toss, they might have lost that series. In fact, so this is almost the first proper test of it, because this is when you want your England plotting batters to play against Pakistan. You want someone to make 80 from 200 balls on some of these pitches. It's a different kind of batting. So it's interesting that they're going with it again. But yeah, I think you're right. I just can't imagine them doing that in any other way. And perhaps on the very flat pitches, maybe it will work again. Just it still feels to me like what McCullum is really saying is it's less about Bazball and it's more about the fact that he's seen all the defensive batters and doesn't think that they can actually make the 80 off 200 balls. Even the Dom Sibley innings maybe can't happen anymore. And so what McCullum is saying is, if we're going to do it, let's just pick the guys who can smack the ball around a little bit. And slowly but surely, they are killing off the defensive players in this lineup one at a time, aren't they?
It feels like that. I mean, there's one other slight nuance to it, I guess, is Livingston in at 8. We mentioned, his figures aren't particularly impressive. They're not unimpressive. But he's been chosen ahead of Jacks in this squad. But more importantly, he's been chosen ahead of Parkinson in the squad at all. So I don't know whether that's a fear, is it, of an 8, 9, 10, 11 that consists of Parkinson, Leach, Robinson, Anderson. And I think, I guess that is a form of comfort for England, but Liam Livingstone doesn't strike me. It's batting at number 8. He's just going to go out and attack, isn't he? That will be his pretty much only way of playing in that position.
You would assume that, and we've seen this before, when you put a proper player who has any attacking tendencies batting at number 7, at number 8, usually it's like lighting their arse on fire, isn't it? And they go out there and they become, Moeen Ali's probably the best example of someone who has done this before. You could see it sometimes, even when younger players, they come into the side batting at number 7, that was a thing that teams used to do back in the old days, and the players would start off by smashing the ball everywhere, and then they'd move up the order and suddenly they'd play like normal batters again. I hate the tyranny of the batting card, but it does seem to affect players. So you would assume that Livingston is going to have a strike rate of at least a run a ball and is going to try and crack it. Now, if he's trying to crack Pakistani bowlers who've been in the field for a day and a half, that's a hell of a great number 8 to have. If he comes in and it's 6 for 100 and Nasim Shah's bowling at 100 miles an hour, things change. And you've got some dreary spinner at the other end who doesn't, allow you to get away. So I find it's an interesting theory. How it plays out, I don't know. But I can't imagine. There's no way McCullum's going to say, I want you to bat normally. He's going to say, go out there and smack the ball.
Yeah. Well, it's always the case, isn't it? If Bazball has a kind of founding philosophy, is that when you're up against it, you attack your way out of it. And England have obviously got the side to do that with the bat. We'll come on to what they do with the ball shortly. Just before we finish off on their batting lineup, Harry Brook is going to be in the side. In a sense, he's the man in possession. He came into the side for the Oval Test match when Johnny Bairstow broke his leg on a golf course. Further proof, if proof be need be, that golf is evil and should not be allowed anywhere near cricketers. But it's actually only really in Pakistan that Harry Brook has found any kind of international success. While he was out in Australia, he struggled a fair bit. And if he does come off, England have got a very attractive looking middle order, haven't they? Of Pope at 3, Root 4, Brook 5, Stokes 6. Attractive, but not necessarily explosive, that's not a kind of wham, bam, thank you, ma'am kind of middle order, because, Pope and Root will go at a respectable, but not exactly crash bang wallop rate, won't they?
Yeah, we saw Root play reverse ramps in England in the summer, didn't we? So he's not going to suddenly score it the way that Bairstow and Stokes have, but he will still play some of those white ball shots because he has the confidence to do that. He might get the pitchers to play them here as well. But yeah, I don't think it's quite Bairstow and Stokes, is it? It's not on that same level of that you would expect to do that. So perhaps though having Livingston later on allows for a little bit of that 2-man muscle game if they need or if they want it. But yeah, I think it's probably. Uh, I'll be interested to see how Harry Brook bats consistently in Test cricket because I think McCullum will be pushing him to be more and more aggressive, and I'm not sure that that's his best long-term game. I don't know. What do you think?
I need to see more of Brook to make sense of it, because what I see of Brook is a man who can time the ball absolutely beautifully and place the ball absolutely beautifully, but I've yet to see him really construct an innings, if you know what I mean. Um, I've seen a lot of beautiful shots, but I'm not sure I've seen an innings come together in the same way that, for example, you see a Pope innings. I saw Pope innings when Pope was the same sort of age as Brook, actually against Yorkshire, which was one of the most perfectly constructed innings I've ever seen. Now, Brook's star has shone really in first-class cricket only this year, at the start of this year, and not a lot of that was too visible. Saw a little bit of it on live streams, but mostly saw highlights of wonderful shot making. I haven't seen that kind of, 50 off 100 becomes 100 off 170, becomes 150 off 210, if you know what I mean. So I'm going to be very interested to see. I think he's in a comfortable place in Pakistan. I think those pitches will suit him. And I think he's very comfortable getting onto the front foot, and he'll be able to get onto the front foot in Pakistan because he's not going to be forced back. But look, time will tell. It's time for us to take our final break. After that, we'll be discussing really the most important thing in Test cricket. How on earth do you take 20 wickets? How do you take 20 wickets on Pakistan pitches? And how do you take 20 wickets with England's attack?
If you love the language of cricket and want more, then head over to the 99.94 app and you can hear all of our podcasts and cricket commentary. We're adding new shows all the time and covering cricket series from all over the world. Be the first to hear all of our announcements by following us on social media at 9994DM. Welcome to Cricket's Conversation.
Welcome back. So, England's bowling attack. It's Ben Stokes, who is a reluctant bowler, but when he does bowl, bowls 20 overs and then limps for about a month, which will surely happen here. It's two spinners in Leach and Livingston, both of whom you imagine will bowl one poor ball and over, because they have done so far throughout their careers. And then it's Ollie Robinson and Jimmy Anderson. Now, the template for taking 20 wickets in Pakistan, I thought, Jared, was extreme pace and mystery spin. Abdul Qadir, Imran Khan, Wasim Akram, Waqar Younis. Indeed, the sorts of bowlers that Pakistan had in their T20 outfit. There'd be no Shaheen Shah Afridi, but the likes of Nazim Shah, Haris Rauf, quick bowlers to take the pitch out of the equation. England have got two very English seamers to open the bowling. And this strikes me as odd. I mean, part of it is circumstance, isn't it? Part of it is the lack of available really pacey options. Wood is out there, but clearly he struggled through the World T20. So getting him to bowl through a whole test match could be problematic. It looks to me like they're saving him for the middle test in the hope that they can get a whole test out of him there. Otherwise, I mean, there's not going to be an inch of grass on the pitch, and I'm not quite sure how Robinson and Anderson. I say this: Anderson's got incredibly good figures in the UAE, remarkably good figures in the UAE, and pitches are not utterly dissimilar, but it doesn't look like an attack that screams 20 wickets to me.
No, it's the anti-Pakistan attack. I mean, there's a reason why reverse swing and the things like the finger wronging and the deuce throw were invented there, and that's because those guys were sick and tired of bowling and not taking any wickets, right? So you have to do what you have to do to actually, invent something new and make it work there. And wobble ball's another one. Muhammad Asif, invented the wobble ball as well. So they've invented a lot of things because they are bored of bowling on flat pitches. And you look at this and you go, okay, the whole idea was that Stokes didn't bowl that much. Well, chances are that Livingston is not more than 10 overs a day. So Stokes is going to have to bowl something there. Ollie Robinson is fit, but I mean, there's a spectrum of fit with Ollie Robinson, isn't there? Is he what's his third spell going to be like? Is he going to be able to actually get through the crease correctly? And as I said, you might in one innings he might have to bowl 7 or 8 spells, right? Like it could be a phenomenally long session if these pitches remain as flat as we have seen. And then you've got Anderson. So Anderson has one of the best bowling averages, I think, in Pakistan of any bowler ever. But he did that when he was, 40 years ago, whenever it was he first played in Pakistan. And then you've got Jack Leach, Jack Leach needs the ball to spin. It may not spin, Dan. So it does look like a bizarre lineup. I'm not sure what you could do to make this lineup better. But the minute they decided that they wanted Livingston in the side, you almost have to hope that he has the best bowling game of his life to justify it. And if he just has a normal Livingston bowling game where he takes less than a wicket a game, you wouldn't want to be Ollie Robinson in that fifth spell, would you? Looking up and going, not only do I have to bowl again, if I don't get a wicket here, Livingston's going to have to come on.
Yeah. I think Joe Root's going to do a lot of bowling as well, incidentally. Yep. And again, not because the pitch is turning, but because Ben Stokes can't bowl 25 overs a day. Ollie Robinson possibly could, but as you say, is he Pakistan fit? He is fitter. Is he Pakistan fit? Jimmy Anderson could do that, but you're sort of asking yourself, do you really want Jimmy Anderson at his age to do 3 back-to-back tests in Pakistan? England have got 2 tests against New Zealand. The Ashes is a long way away. It's 6 months away, and England have quite rightly been castigated for thinking too far into the future and not looking at what's right in front of them. But nonetheless, Jimmy Anderson doesn't scream 5 wickets a game here. There's 2 things I think might be to their advantage, possibly. One is that England will bat quickly, so they will have quite a lot of time in the field. And more time in the field you have, I suppose, the better chance there is of taking 20 wickets. The other side of it is, are these games are we going to get results? I mean, are we actually looking at results? I mean, there's a couple of reasons. Forget the pitch just for a minute. The matches are only 5.5 hours per day. So you're already losing half an hour. You'll not be able to make up the half hour that inevitably is needed to make up the overs, because sunset in Pakistan this time of year, around Rawalpindi, for example, is around about 5 to 5. So they're not going to manage to get in extra overs. So I would not be at all surprised, especially in pretty warm conditions, especially with bowlers who are having to bowl very long spells, that you're going to be looking at 75 over days here, which is a pretty different kind of proposition on flat decks. If you're losing 15 overs a day, you're almost losing a whole day's play. So forcing results on really, really flat decks in 4 and a bit days, maybe, it's going to come down. Just as you said, Pat Cummins described it as 15 days of Test cricket. I think he also said he even went one bit further and said he saw it as 145 session Test match.
Yeah.
It's going to come down, isn't it, potentially, to a side imploding, losing their minds, being a bit daft in a session, losing 4 or 5 wickets, daft run out, something really unlucky, a slog that rebounds off short leg. It could be that kind of thing that's going to break the stalemate.
Yeah, it's such a different form of cricket, because when Pakistan left us, their pitches were not that dissimilar. They didn't spin as much as India, but they were batting friendly in the way that India's were. And we kind of knew more or less that it was a normal wicket, but it was an Asian wicket. Since then, Asian wickets seem to be more Asian. Sri Lanka seems to spin more, and India have spiced up some of their wickets at times, and for quicks and for spinners. The rest of cricket has gone seam bowler crazy, right? Like, seam bowlers are taking wickets at a rate that we just never seen before. Absolutely remarkable. And then you come back and, the draw rate in Pakistan so far, and I think there's only been one game that was affected by the weather, is just so much higher than anywhere else in the world. And it's only from a few games at the moment, and we don't know if that will stay. But as it currently stands, it does feel like this is a different form of cricket. So, for someone like Jimmy Anderson, who probably grew up playing this form of cricket when he started, it makes a lot more sense. for the Bazball sort of more method of everyone else, it is, I think, a little bit more of a random way. And as you said, you have that, if you have that session where you do lose a bunch of wickets, you middle order, someone walks past one and chips one up in the air, and suddenly you get yourself in that sort of position. It could easily fall apart, not just in that test, but in the series, in the way that these seem to be played in Pakistan. Does England have the mindset for that? Remember that Brendan McCullum, for all the Bazball stuff, if you look at his record, he didn't play that aggressive all the time. He's got a 100 where he played quite defensive, and I think he had a big score in the UAE, which was that the 100 or was that the double 100 that he made? Yeah, a couple of times he's actually batted in a different way. Brendan McCullum was a really good player who could play in different levels. One of the worries I've had looking at England is, do they think they have to play ultra aggressive? And if you look at Ben Stokes and how he's playing in Test cricket at times, you'd say that he kind of does feel that way. I'm not sure that's going to suit here. I mean, we could be completely wrong, and they could, make 450 in those 75 overs and completely rip the heart out of Pakistan. But I just don't think that is the way that you play on these pitches.
I entirely agree with you, but as I said, I've been proved completely wrong constantly by Ben Stokes, to the extent that I'm sure he gives me a kind of sideways look every time he sees me, as if to say, "You're a cretin and you know nothing." So I'm gonna reserve judgment till we get, until England have their first batting collapse, which may be on the first day, maybe on the third day, and who knows when that first day will be? As we discussed earlier, will it be on a scheduled day? Will it get moved forward? There's so many ifs and buts. But we will be back on England Cricket on 99.94 to discuss how the series is going. Is Bazball going to prevail? Will Bazball actually be unveiled? Will it be an entirely different method that they feel they have to use? How many overs will there be in a day? What will England do against Pakistan's fierce seamers? And there's usually a 55-year-old spinner who's masquerading as a 34-year-old, like Abdur Rahman or Zulfikar Baba. Will there be one of those to lighten and gladden the heart? We will find out shortly. Thank you for listening to England Cricket on 99.94, where we speak cricket every day. Please rate, review, subscribe wherever you enjoy your podcast. You can download the 99.94 app, then follow us on Twitter at, in my case, Norcross Cricket. And Jared, what's your Twitter handle?
Jared Kimber.
Marvellous. Never miss out. Join our 24/7 conversation on social media. Follow us at 9994DM. Cricket every day, your way.